Hello everyone and welcome back to Reddit Taletales. Today we're going through some malicious compliance, so sit back, relax, hit that like button and let's just jump straight into it. Write down all of my downtime? You got it! This happened about a month ago. I work at a plant that makes parts for a very well-known car manufacturer. My workplace is very picky about efficiency and your parts per hour. I work on a 3-person line, and on that particular line we have the 2 people load the parts together and the robots weld them together, resistant weld, and they send it to the person in the middle to load it to be MIG welded by another set of robots, then inspects the parts, then put them on a rack to be sent to another line. If there is a bad weld, that person has to MIG weld, repair the part if possible. Because of the certain sickness, we had to readjust on how we work to keep everyone and self-check ourselves before going to work and have to report any symptoms. And no, they do not check the employee's temperature, only ask them at the door. One day I had a very bad cough that turned into a sore throat and a running nose, so I went to the EHS, the Environment, Health and Safety Office, to report my symptoms, and since I didn't have any of the other symptoms, I was approved to continue to work, but must wear a mask at all time, go figure, and given me a bunch of cough drops. Remember how I said that we have 3 people on my line? Well, we've been struggling with attendance since we went back to full production, about 80 to 90% attendance. So we only gotten 2 people on the line until we get more people to show up for work. So we have to do the job of 3 people with just 2, which is possible but can't run as fast. For reference, with 3 people we can easily run over 60 parts per hour, but with just 2 we barely get over 40 parts. Plus, I had to blow my nose every 15 to 30 minutes and suck in on cough drops one after the other. Eventually the coordinator came to me and asked me why I wasn't hitting my numbers, and of course I mentioned about the lack of a person and I wasn't feeling well. So then he looked at my downtime paper where I must write down all of my downtime including breaks and lunch. Then he asked me why I didn't write anything down. I told him that I was very busy with trying to run as much as possible. He was having none of it and demanded that I write down all of my downtime. I was very mad, but I decided to let the malicious compliance kick in. I took the downtime and wrote down the EHS visit, then continued to fill out the paperwork to include 1 minute of downtime of every time I blow my nose and 1 minute for every time I had to unwrap and insert a cough drop. Also included was the time I stopped and talked to the coordinator and the time it took me to write down my other downtimes. By the end of the shift, I filled the entire downtime sheet, and because we have to share the same downtime with the night shift, they had no room to write down anything, and they have to turn it in to the team leader at the end of the night to be turned into the office where they would have to go through them. In the next few days, I was expected to be called into the office or asked about the paperwork, but that never happened, nor was I brought into any meetings. Nobody said anything about it, but the coordinator was a lot more respectful to me, and we get along well, and eventually they were able to hire someone to run our line with us. I know the malicious compliance was petty and very childish, but it felt good and turned out better than I expected. TLDR. I was sick and the coordinator wanted me to write down my downtime, so I've written every time I blew my nose or eat a cough drop. I think that was a brilliant malicious compliance OP, and it's really good to see that you weren't called into any meetings and you could carry on and do the work as effectively as you could, and you took the time to look after yourself, and hope you're feeling better now as well, and I'm glad things are back up to normal. On to our next story. I have to use toilet paper to clean your dirty phone? Okay! This happened right before lockdown when I was helping my mother clean the apartment of my grandmother, who had to go to a home for the elderly due to Alzheimer's. It was brought up today because both my mother and I thought it was a funny thing to do. My mother and I both have the habit of playing music while we do household chores, and this time was no different. While I was doing the living room, she was cleaning the bathroom with the shower. I suddenly hear her cursing. Her phone had fallen onto the dirty shower floor. Slight misphobia caused her to freak out, so I offered to clean it for her. I sighed and said it should be clean again in no time with a sheet of kitchen paper and a bit of soapy water. I attempt to move to the kitchen to grab a sheet of kitchen paper to clean with it, but get stopped. Just use the toilet paper. I ask her why, as it's the thin kind that basically disintegrates when humidity rises by 1%. She says it is less expensive, but other than that it seems to be unable to make a good point. I roll my eyes and engage in my malicious compliance. As my mother watches on, I grab a whopping 4 sheets of toilet paper, fold them a little and let a few drops of water from the sink in the bathroom fall on it. My hand becomes already visible through the 4 sheets because it is that thin. I let a small drop of soap fall onto it and start to rub over the surface of my mother's phone. The first wipe succeeded in almost tearing the toilet paper in half. Despite that, I continue cleaning her phone in 3 wipes flat. I was basically just rubbing the phone with my bare hands, holding whatever scraps of paper I could. While I continue cleaning, I look up at her with the straightest face possible and ask if I was doing it to her satisfaction. At which point she burst out laughing, admitting that I might have a point here and that I was allowed to use kitchen paper for this kind of cleaning in future. Roommate meltdown over issue they created themselves, or how I made an angry roommate even angrier. Fresh out of college, I lived with my 2 roommates in a townhouse. For the most part, I was the designated roommate to call or email our landlord every time there was an issue, and there were a lot of issues. One day, something broke in the whiny roommate's bathroom that was totally irrelevant to me and the other roommate. I offered to call the landlord about it, but whiny roommate insisted she wants to deal with it because she wants to tell it off our landlord. Day after day, whiny roommate complains about the issue. Day after day, whiny roommate tells us how she's going to rip a strip off the landlord about this. Day after day, whiny roommate does not contact the landlord about it. Day after day, other roommate and I maliciously comply with her refusal of help. Weeks go by with whiny roommate is getting madder and madder, but will not contact the landlord about the issue. Something else breaks in the house and I call the landlord about that specific thing, and only that one thing. Landlord comes, fixes that specific thing, leaves. Whiny roommate freaked out. Full on, screaming tantrum, lost her mind on me, locked herself in her room, and did not talk to us for days. After that, we never again heard about whiny roommate's issue, which she never did contact the landlord about. Wow. Just wow. If you're going to deal with something, be upfront, deal with it, sort the issue out. If you're not, don't complain all the time about it to other people, because they do kind of get a bit bored of it after a while. Billing address ain't the same as delivery address. Hello! First time writer, long time lurker here. I work in a small company that has its share of W2F moments, but this simple event is one of the few that actually qualifies for the malicious compliance. Usually, I just try to forget everything because of the stress, but I'll try to tell this year-old story while I somewhat remember it. Some background. The company is very small, 6 or 7 people working at that time, and we are not in the US. With a company this small, you'd think that it's easy to pass on information to each other, but, well, you'll see. Our head of sales is one of the biggest share owners who's the real boss, used to be a CEO but he demoted himself, and the current CEO is glorified office worker who pretty much just does billing. One thing we do is physical activity games with digital elements for indoor playgrounds and activity parks. My job is to manufacture and send out those games. Typical orders process for our company is that our head of sales sends a WhatsApp group message, build X game for insert client's first name. Any extra information is luxury that I'll have to beg from him or dig up myself if he doesn't care to answer. So, order comes for a hockey slapshot game. It's a beefy game where you can shoot hockey pucks at full force to LED lighting up targets. This game weighs a lot because it has to take hits and it's like 2 meters wide or so, not the cheapest thing to send out. A few days go by and the game is ready to be sent out on a big pallet. I'll start my usual process of asking around who actually is the client and where the hell do I send it. I'll go ask my boss, CEO, since she's in the next room. I luckily get a billing information. Okay, that's the billing address, but I'll need a delivery address. She doesn't know it and as usual just asks me to figure it out by myself. WhatsApp message to head of sales asking where to send the game since he is usually somewhere doing sales and not at office. Haven't seen him in weeks. The answer comes back. I did send all the information to CEO. I do a quick Google search. The address is on the other side of the country and it is a beach resort. Not really place for a hockey game, but hey, I don't judge. Also, co-workers have only heard rumours about the client but not any concrete information. With a co-worker, we are fairly sure that this billing address ain't the right place to send it. We could ask the client, but in the past there have been cases where the head of sales didn't want us to contact the clients past him, so we comply. This time my co-worker sends a WhatsApp group message saying that we only have a billing address for the game. Answer comes back, just send it. Fine, I'll send this extra large pallet to the other side of the country if you don't care to do a double check on the information. Head of sales sends a WhatsApp message a few days later. Crap! The hockey game was sent to the wrong place. It should have gone to city less than 2 hour drive away. Normally, I would have had to start the process of getting it to the right place, but that was the last time I heard of that particular game. Well done, OP. That was a brilliant malicious complaint. You've got it all on record. He can't say anything back to you about it. There can be no complaints because you did exactly what he said. It was fantastic. And for anyone else that enjoyed that today, that's all we have time for. If you did enjoy it, hit that like button, subscribe for more, and I will see you guys all again tomorrow. Thank you and goodbye.